Okay, so thank you for stopping. What's your name?
Josh.
Hi, Josh. I'm Haas. And so basically, I'm just going to ask you a series of questions that's going to try to kind of like make you think from maybe a different perspective.
Okay.
So you might not be able to tell where it's going initially, but then kind of as I ask you more questions, it'll kind of start to make sense a little bit. I appreciate your participating in advance. So what do you define oppression as?
Oppression. I guess living in circumstances that are less than ideal or what we're individually used to.
I like that. The only thing I would maybe change on it is maybe just that there's something imposed upon you. Would you agree?
Yes. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions about oppression and ask you if this modifier makes it kind of okay to oppress another being. So if the oppressor is much more powerful, would that make it okay to impose oppression on another?
Well, what power are we talking about?
Any kind of power.
I mean, there has to be a balance, right? You can't have one that has more power than the other. But it's hard for me to look at hypotheticals. It's easier for me to look at specifics when we're talking about a certain person and what they're doing.
Sure, I can give an example. For example, if someone has more physical power and they want to dominate someone physically against their will.
Okay. Yeah. That's
Still wrong.
Yeah, still wrong.
Yeah. What would you say if the victim of the oppression is not aware of their oppression? So if the oppressor is, let's say, intellectually superior, does that make it okay?
I don't know. We all have to have like a moral compass, and you got to be able to like read the room and know if you're in the position of where you have too much power. Say it's intellectual power. If you have too much power, I don't know. Maybe not scaling it back, but everybody's human, so you have to. I don't know. You kind of got to adjust it, right? There has to be like a sliding scale of like how much you use that power versus how little you use that power. If that makes sense at all.
But if you're using the power to oppress the other being, it's still wrong.
Yeah,
correct?
it's still wrong.
Yeah, I'm just focusing just on oppression.
Okay.
If the victim is, let's say, different looking than the one being oppressed, would that be a good justification?
I don't know. I mean, different looking can mean so many things. It could be physical weight. It could be how much you work out in the gym.
Sure.
You see some of these guys that play sports. I mean, they look like giants compared to most of us. So,
But that wouldn't give them the right to oppress, right?
No, definitely not give them the right. But it does make it, I guess, easier for them.
Easier, of course, but not justified.
Yeah, not justified.
Perfect. And this is open-ended for, it's intentionally open-ended. So where I'm heading with all this, I know you're with the group, so I don't want to hold you back too long. My reason for bringing this all up is because I'm wondering how you feel about the non-human animals, the ones who we force into slaughterhouses against their will. Do you view them as an oppressed class who may not be aware of what's happening, may not be able to fully comprehend, is less powerful than us, isn't going to be able to free themselves, and is being basically forced into a situation that's imposed upon them?
It's an interesting take.
I appreciate that.
No, it is an interesting take. I mean, I've never physically seen a slaughterhouse or chicken farmers that do chickens and stuff like that. I've seen videos and documentaries, and you're looking at it from a distance, not knowing anything about the process of what cows and pigs and chickens have to go through to get to our table. But it is on a mass scale. We know that much. So would I consider it oppression? I mean, compared to most animals, it seems like we're superior, if you want to use that word, the human race.
Yeah, intellectually, absolutely we are.
And we have to eat something, so it's I don't know. Are they oppressed? By definition and standards, yeah, I guess so. But I don't think most of us really think about that on a daily basis.
It's absolutely the case, and this is why I kind of told you initially that you might have to think in a little bit different of a perspective, because to credit your point, as you go throughout your day, you see billboards like chicken sandwich, $1.99, whatever. You see all these things that make this absolutely normal for us, and we don't really think twice about going through a drive-through and deciding between a chicken quesadilla or a beef taco, and we have these euphemisms too for like, cow flesh, we call it beef. Chicken's a little bit different of a situation, but in any case, when we put ourselves in their position, we realize that they have an entire life that gets taken away from them for something that's just 15 minutes of gustatory pleasure. It's not even something that we necessarily need. And I think, the scientific consensus has established already that we can be perfectly happy and healthy without consuming the products of this violence. Would you say that this is something that you've consciously thought about before and actively decided to participate in, or would you say that it's more something that you might be one of the people who's kind of avoided thinking about it because you might have to change if you did?
I don't think necessarily from the aspect that I would have to change my ways or my eating habits. I think, like a lot of people, we get caught up in our day-to-day lives, our jobs. I work in healthcare. My wife works in healthcare. We do travel contracts. And we're always on the move. And as much as we don't want to admit it, it's like something that's not even like on the back burner of our thoughts. It's just that it doesn't even exist until somebody starts a conversation. So no, I don't feel like I think about it that often.
Great. Well, do you think that there'd be anything holding you back? For most people, it's like taste pleasure. That's the big one that people actually don't want to even admit to themselves.
Yeah.
And then there's other considerations that maybe make it difficult for people who actually believe in the moral impetus, but maybe try and fail, like convenience or just habits. But I know that you gotta join your folks. So I don't want to keep you too long, but let me go ahead and give you some materials, if I may, and it's something that you can look into more. So I appreciate your stopping. Let me go ahead and hand you this. So this just has some more information. This is from a place called Vegan Outreach. And that's just what I'm doing here. I'm just doing vegan outreach. So I'm trying to get people to challenge the idea of speciesism, which is basically the idea that some lives are worth more than others based on what species they belong to. Case in point, in the U.S., it's illegal to trade dog and cat meat. But, we completely legally sanction cows, pigs, turkeys, chickens, slaughter. Are you visiting here, by the way?
Well, technically living until our contract ends in late August. Before we were here, we were in Cincinnati. Before that, Indianapolis. So we've been all over the place.
Oh, right on.
But it's one of those things like back home in Paducah, Kentucky, where I'm from.
Okay, I thought I heard a little bit of a southern.
I try to hide it.
No, it's all good. My girlfriend's from Alabama. So.
Okay, there you go. Well, in Paducah, I forget the name of the company, but we do have a company that's a plant-based food service company, and I have never taken time to eat there. I got a friend who works there, and she's encouraged me to go eat there, but I don't know, you make excuses. There's always a million excuses not to do something. And I think the same thing with trying to convince like the mass public to have this conversation and think about changing their eating habits. If I'm being honest, I don't see it ever happening, because you're going to get those people who are like, you can't change me, you're taking away my freedoms, or whatever they want to call it. And they're going to fight back, or not do this, especially. I
mean, we've seen videos of people calling the initiatives for people to legally be mandated to wear seatbelts. We've seen people saying, if this isn't communism, I don't know what is. Back in the day. I think it always seems impossible until we do it.
Well, I mean, it's not impossible, because I remember a time I remember growing up going to restaurants, and you would we have a party of 6, and they would ask you smoking or non-smoking. I can't remember the last restaurant or establishment I've been in where you're allowed to smoke anymore. So, I mean, it can be done. It's just, are people willing to do it? Willing.
That's the whole thing. Willingness, the willingness to do something for someone who could never repay you. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't repay you. And in a lot of the case, by going vegan, you're just removing yourself from the equation. So it's just a non-action. You're not actually saving anybody. You're kind of preventing future Holocaust victims, basically.
I mean, some days, at the end of the day, the most an individual can do is, I can do my part. I can't worry about what everybody else is contributing to. So it's unfortunate, but it's the world, or the America we live in.
Well, thanks, Josh. I appreciate your stopping by.
No problem.
And hope you have a great time at Navy Pier. And thanks for coming. Thanks for coming by here.
Good content, man.
Thank you. So, what's your name?
Trayvon.
Trayvon. I'm Haas. It's nice to meet you. Do you guys want to participate also?
Not me.
Okay, no worries. He doesn't mind an audience, right?
No, go.
All right, so in this experiment, I'm going to ask you some questions, and you might have to think a little bit differently, but it'll all make sense in the end. So I'm wondering what you think about oppression. Like, how would you define oppression?
Oppression?
Yeah. Oh, butterfly just went on you. That's good luck.
I don't know. Oppression? How would you define oppression?
All right, he's asking the audience. It's like a game show.
How would you define oppression? He's asking what does it mean?
So oppression could be thought of as like, someone using their power basically in a way over someone, in a way that hurts them, in a way that harms
That
them.
can be very, very bad. How I would define it? Shit, abusive.
Yeah. Do you think that if the oppressor is like stronger than the one that they're oppressing, does that make it okay to oppress in that case, or is it still?
No, it's like bullying.
Yeah, it's bullying, exactly. What would you think though if the victim of the oppression doesn't know that they're being oppressed? Like if they're not aware of how much better things could be for them, and they're just kind of existing under the oppression, does that make it okay?
You gotta get outside. You gotta get outside where we at. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you. I'll kind of cut to the chase here. Are you aware of the practices in the animal agriculture industry, like for things like meat, eggs, and dairy?
Like they kill animals?
Yeah, killing them and also, enslaving them and exploiting them. Do you think that in that case, when we consider that those beings are victims of a kind of oppression?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And what do you think we can do about it if we think that oppression is wrong and that they are victims of oppression? What would be a solution to that we could kind of enact in our day-to-day lives?
Shut that shit down.
Yeah, shut it down.
Shut that shit down.
Bingo. And what do you think you can do to help shut that shit down?
Pass the word around. Get the word out.
Yeah.
Visualize it for people so they see it for what it's worth. Because I've seen a little bit, videos of people going around and doing different shit. So I haven't seen a little bit. So just get the word out. Pass the word around.
Yeah. And have you ever happened to see slaughterhouse footage?
Yeah.
And how do you feel when you see it?
Disagree with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just unnecessary harm. And have you ever heard of veganism? What are your thoughts on it?
I don't have no. That's like when motherfuckers don't eat meat.
Anything from an animal. So we wouldn't eat. So I've been vegan for about 12 years. So I haven't eaten animal flesh, cheese, eggs, honey, all that stuff.
There ain't nothing wrong with it because you're trying to keep your body healthy.
Not just keeping your body healthy, but
it's also saving the animals from not getting killed.
Yeah.
So if you don't eat the meat, then
so it's supply and demand, right?
Right.
If you don't ask for it, then they produce less.
Right. There you go.
So do you think that would be something that would align with your values to refrain from paying into that system?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Let me give you some more information, and then you can read about it and make a decision. So here's a flyer for you. And do you have any questions about veganism when you think about it? Like, does it seem like something that would be really hard for you to do, or does it seem like you'd still be able to live in a way where you can be healthy and happy? And
most definitely.
Yeah,
most definitely. I don't feel like there's nothing wrong with it.
With veganism?
No, there's nothing wrong.
That's awesome.
With it.
Well, thanks so much. Was it Trayvon?
Trayvon.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
Sir.
Thanks for stopping. And if you guys want to check out my channel, it's on YouTube. It's called Haz Vegan. It's just Haz. That's my name, and then vegan.
Gotcha. I'd most definitely check you out, boss.
Thank you guys for stopping. I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, guys. Are you the only person who's participating? Don't put her out like that. Come on. Okay. So I'm asking people their thoughts on a topic that may not seem very relevant at first, but then as I kind of ask more questions, it might start to make a little bit more sense what I'm talking about here. This is just a social experiment that's going to make you maybe think a little bit differently than you might be used to thinking and kind of take a little bit different of a perspective. So my first question is what you guys think about oppression in general. Like, do you see that as a positive thing or a negative thing?
Negative.
You can be the spokesperson for the group.
I personally feel it is negative.
Yeah. And would you see oppression as something that, we can all maybe define it a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, it's someone getting some conditions imposed upon them from the outside. It's not something that they're organically choosing to have take place in their life.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So do you think that if you were to confront an oppressor and try to get them to change their ways, and they told you that they're just so much more powerful than the beings that they're oppressing, that it's therefore okay to continue doing what they're doing? Like, do you think that a power differential being greater makes it justified?
No, I do not think that makes it justified, but that is the idea of like racism, of being like oppressed because you have more power.
That's certainly, that's a salient example. What do you think if the oppressor says that the victim of the oppression doesn't know that they're being oppressed? So in other words, they don't have the intellectual capacity to even know that there is a better world out there, and that their oppression is something that they're even experiencing.
I don't think that means you should still do it. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
What if I agree. What if the oppressor just really wants to do it? Like they say, they just really get a lot of pleasure from oppressing in whatever form.
Find something else to do.
Yeah. And do you think that if the oppressed victim looks different, whether it's like size, shape, color, would that make it okay if they say they belong to that group of individuals who are a different shape, are a different color, are a different size than me? Would that make it okay?
No.
Yeah. Great. So given all these answers, I basically have determined that you're against oppression in a lot of different scenarios, that whether the victim is less intellectually capable, if they look different for whatever reason, and if they're not powerful, they don't have the ability to remove themselves from the oppression, you're still against it in all those cases. So that sounds like a really consistent anti-oppression mentality, and I applaud you for that. I'm wondering, in light of that, how you feel about the animals that we force into slaughterhouses.
I honestly think it's the same thing. Like, we shouldn't do it, but it's like so, that's like you were saying earlier, it's so normal now that everyone does it, but it should not help, and I agree.
That's amazing. And can you think of a way that you can live where you reject the species-based commodification of animal life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just slowly getting into it. I know my mother is newly vegan, so we're trying to get there, but it's just hard to change, but you got to do it. So,
yeah, I think we're all raised from, as children, being taught, for example, that the turkey is the animal that goes on the table at Thanksgiving, but the dog is the one that runs around and gets little scraps of their cadaver, basically. You know what I mean? Like, but we don't question it, and we flavor it with all these spices and seasonings, all of which are vegan, by the way, for the most part, right? Like all the herbs and things like that. And then we just don't question it. We get calloused into it. It's reinforced by our environment. We see billboards, advertisements, things like that. I don't intend to sit and like preach about it here. I'm just saying that like I can relate to a perspective where you might not have thought about it, or you might have some resistance, kind of pushing the borders of this society that tells you that you have to walk in this straight, narrow line of following these orders of turning other animals into our property, basically.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your stopping, and I'd like to just give you guys some information if I can, and then I'll just send you guys on your merry way here. So here's a few leaflets. You can hand them out to your friends and stuff. And I appreciate you guys stopping again, and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thank you guys for stopping. So I'm Haas. What's your name?
My name is Brian.
Nice to meet you, Brian. Is that Brian with a Y?
Brian with an I.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask you kind of a series of questions that is maybe going to stretch your mind a little bit, kind of get you thinking a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And the idea is just to give you a different way of thinking. I'm not like a religious person, and I'm not asking for anything at all. I'm not going to ask you for any money or anything like that. Just your open and honest thoughts is all I ask for.
Okay.
So my question is what you think about oppression.
I feel like it's wrong. Like, you don't want to oppress people. You don't want to put nobody in things that they shouldn't want to be in, or without their own opinion, or some people. I don't think nobody agreed to it, and I don't think nobody should be labeled or get into them type of things. You should not try to put me into something I don't want to do.
That's a really, really wise answer. You said nobody gets into it. In other words, like nobody wants to be oppressed, right?
Yeah,
it's always something that's imposed from, it's from another being, right? It's from another person, basically. And other animals aren't capable of oppressing us, right? So it's always humans that are oppressing us. It's not from the from the ocean, from the sky, you know, from the rocks, right? It's always another person, another human, more specifically. That's awesome. What would you say if the oppressor, though, in some scenarios, said they really want to oppress? Would that make it more justified if they just got a lot of pleasure from whatever they were doing?
It ain't never justifiable. Not in my opinion. No, they don't get no justifiability for saying that they want to really oppress, because it's like you trying to do something that's going against everybody else's will. Don't nobody want to be oppressed.
Right. What would you say if the oppressor said, though, that their victim doesn't know that they're being oppressed? In other words, if they're intellectually in such a situation where it's happening and the oppressor is benefiting, they're getting pleasure from it or whatever they're getting from it, they're making maybe money off of it, but their victim is portrayed as being so intellectually inferior that it's okay to do what they're doing.
You're giving them misguided information, so you still being wrong. That's like playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. What would you say if the oppressor said that their victim looks different to them, like they're a different size, shape, color, something like that, where they said they're not part of my group, they're part of this group that is like a different size, shape, color, something like that?
Still wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree, Brian. So all these questions, I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier when I talked about the human versus other animals thing, but basically my question is how you feel about the animals that we as humans force into slaughterhouses to die for, trivial purposes like taste or meals that we don't really need.
I feel like it's still wrong even when it comes down to animals, but I feel like, we didn't create the thing of we got to eat. That started from like caveman times. They seen that this was a meal that supplied us with protein, even though they got protein shakes, they got protein bars.
They didn't back then, though.
Yeah, back then they didn't have it, so that's what I was saying. Like, even from back then, they seen like, oh, you can eat this. We're going to kill this animal, we're going to eat it, and then, you're going to be good for your body. I'm not saying that it's right. I'm not saying that it's wrong. I feel like, me personally, I feel like it's wrong. Well, I feel like I stopped eating meat and things. I don't know. I feel like I've been kind of like brainwashed into like, I got to eat meat. And wow. I know that's a bad thing to say, but in all reality, it's like I was born eating meat from my parents and from their parents and their parents. It's a brainwash thing. I still feel like it's wrong. I can go vegetarian, but it's like I've been eating meat my whole life. It's like kind of hard to stop. I done stopped multiple times, and then I just so happen always end back up doing it.
Yeah, before we get to the how and that kind of thing, I want to touch on what you said about the caveman, because they did get nutrition from killing animals at that time, but it was kind of something that they had to do at that time, right? Because if it was winter and there was famine, or they didn't have the ability to grow crops at that time, they didn't have the ability to go to the grocery store, that's what they had to do to survive. But in our case, so it sounds like, you said you kind of, right? You do think it's wrong. So what I would say is, in that case, it's kind of like a necessary evil. And an interesting question that I've heard before is, if something is a necessary evil and then it no longer becomes necessary, what do we have left? If it's not necessary anymore, it's just, what is it?
Still evil.
It's just evil. Just
plain evil.
Yep, you got it. Exactly.
Yeah, it's just plain evil. Yeah.
So what do you think you can do if you think that there's something that you're participating in your life? What would it take for you to align your actions with your values?
Me personally, you can try to stop things, you can try to change things, you try to maneuver in different ways that benefits not just you, but the world and the population of everything and everybody. You can try to like rearrange your thought process from when you was a kid to your own mindset as an adult.
Yeah, to unlearn, basically.
Yeah, it's unlearning, relearning, saying things that you was taught as a child. That's really your only option.
Yeah. Yeah, and to that end, let me give you a flyer here. So I've got some information here. And have you ever happened to see slaughterhouse footage before?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have some on an iPad in case you'd want to just witness the standard practices.
Yeah, no, I've seen it.
You've seen it?
I worked in one before.
Oh, you worked in a slaughterhouse? Wow.
Yeah, Cargill in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I quit. It was devastating. I quit after like 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it was too much for my liking. It stopped me from eating meat for a while also too.
Wow, if you don't mind me asking, were you on the kill floor?
Yeah, I was on the kill floor. Yeah, I was like the one who shot him in the head. I tried to do it as long as my stomach can manage, but it didn't last long. So it stopped me from eating meat for a while, and then I did eventually end up going back. But that was like I said, I was raised that way.
Yeah.
But
Well, maybe this
I'll never
conversation
do it
will be,
again.
and maybe this conversation will be what it takes to get you thinking about it again.
Yeah, facts. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Brian. I don't want to keep you from your day, but anymore. But thank you for stopping by. And
Appreciate you, man.
of course, and if you want to check out this channel, it's called Haz Vegan. That's my name, Haz, H-A-Z, and then just the word vegan on YouTube.
Haz Vegan.
Yep.
H-A what?
H-A-Z.
H-A-Z Vegan.
Yep.
Thank you, bro.
Yep. Thanks again. Thank you guys for participating. My name's Haz. This will only take a few minutes. I'm not religious. I'm not trying to sell you anything or ask you for anything other than your honest opinions.
Okay.
I am going to ask you questions that may kind of bend your way of thinking a little bit.
Okay.
Not in a warped kind of sense, but just maybe test the limits of your ability to think a little bit flexibly.
Okay.
Okay, great. And I appreciate you guys participating.
Are you comfortable participating?
I'm anxious.
No reason to be anxious.
No, I mean in a good way.
That's good. Excited, maybe.
Yes.
Sure.
Fear is excitement minus the breath.
Thank you. Yeah.
Anyway, so my questions are about oppression. So I'm wondering what you guys think about oppression in general. And maybe I can kind of just ask you guys one at a time, or just kind of maybe just get a general sense if you want to speak for them.
I can't speak for them for sure.
Or not like speak for them,
Yeah.
but like, if you want to, what do you guys think about oppression, I guess?
I mean,
maybe
I'm
just
definitely against it.
I don't like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a
Okay.
good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would you agree that oppression is something that's imposed on beings basically from an outside source?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not something innate to them. Right.
Correct.
It
yeah.
comes from a place of fear.
Yeah. That's a whole deeper analysis that's maybe beyond the level of where I quite am yet. But would you also agree that it doesn't come from like the earth? It doesn't come from the wind, the sand, the sun, the sky.
Okay. I'm on board with that.
Yeah, it
Social
comes.
oppression, or I mean, because definitely weather can create oppression.
Yeah, it
in
can
a
seem
group of
oppressive.
people, yeah.
Fair point.
The
Fair
weather
point.
can be oppressive,
Yes.
but it doesn't pick anybody in particular to
Correct.
oppress.
Yeah. Social oppression, I guess.
Yeah,
So, would you say that if there was an oppressor in a scenario where they said that their oppression should continue, like the oppression that they're enacting should continue because the victim of the oppression is of a lower intellectual caliber than them to such a sufficient degree that the oppressor doesn't even get recognized as committing oppression? Do you think that would make it okay?
I don't think there's ever time anything makes it okay.
No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like I can say no.
What if they said that they really get a lot of pleasure out of it? Like whatever they're doing, they just really, really derive a lot of joy.
No.
That's
Sick. Yeah. Yes. I agree. What would you think if the oppressor said that the victim of the oppression looks different to them? So they're a different size, shape, color. They're part of a different group. Like they basically label them as outsiders and
Doesn't make
call
it right.
them.
Does not make it right.
Still, yeah. Yep. I agree completely on all these counts. So it sounds like so far you guys have a pretty consistent viewpoint against oppression. A mentality that no matter what, whether the oppressed being looks different, if they're intellectually inferior, or if they're not able to kind of free themselves from that oppression, or if they are not aware of the oppression taking place, or even if the oppressor is getting so much joy from it that they somehow are able to justify it, at least to themselves, that there's some kind of net positive value to it, it's still wrong across the board.
That
right?
would make the oppressor intellectually inferior.
Maybe in a way, yeah. If you consider empathy to be a form of intelligence, yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Are you listening to this? A little bit, yeah.
So my next question, and this is kind of maybe where it might get a little bit kind of controversial in your mind, is what you think about the animals who are forced into slaughterhouses for unnecessary foods.
What do you think about that? Do we eat animals in our house? We don't, do we? No.
You don't eat animals?
No.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
none of you
We
guys?
do. They
We
do.
do?
Yes.
And I'm wondering
We don't.
if you think that let me, I guess, ask you first, do you think that is a form of oppression,
For sure.
what's being done?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course it is. they're living things just like everything else.
Yeah.
It's difficult. Like I grew up eating animals and animal products
And loving it, right?
Absolutely.
We all did. Yeah.
I didn't say it didn't taste good. I
Yeah.
said that I just made a choice at some
It's
point.
culturally what we did.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, probably, how old are you, 7?
Gonna
Probably
be
8. Yeah, probably 8 years ago. My husband and I were kind of looking for, it started out for health, just like a healthier way to live.
Yeah.
And that made the most sense. But then we kind of went a little bit further and I was like, oh, wait, this is really bad. Let's try not to participate in that as much as we can. I mean, there's things that I don't consciously buy leather, but like I'm not throwing out leather in my home, you know. But yeah, we do our best. We do our best.
Yeah, and some people approach it from a perspective of not wanting to view animals as resources at all, and will
Right.
end up throwing away old
Sure.
animal-based things that they had, whereas other people will say that they're not increasing any demand after that point
Yeah.
once they make that commitment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I am a human being who is just trying to do their best, and I at times have been more not militant, but just more concerned strict about every single thing that went in my mouth. After having kids, I've had to make a little bit of flexible decisions, but as far as our house is concerned, we keep our house vegan.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
I was just about to ask what you thought about things like dairy or honey and things like that.
You know, honey's gross. I mean, it's bee vomit, so it's not something that I'm really interested in eating anyway.
And we're streaming for a vegan audience here.
Oh,
so.
sorry.
Oh.
Hi.
So yeah, they're totally on board.
Yeah.
I think we're maybe not quite in this frame, but it's all good.
So like I said, I have the times been more strict if my kids are at a birthday party and they're serving cupcakes made with dairy. They're going to eat the cupcakes made with dairy. I'm not trying to.
That cow already gave the milk.
Well, it's not even just that. I mean, she makes her own decisions and very often says no, thank you.
She does a lot.
And we've raised them to I have a son at home. Raise them to understand the ethical implications of using animals for food. But also, I don't want my kids to have food issues. So I'm trying not to label good food and bad food, just as kind of, this is our morals and our values.
Yeah.
This is how we eat. You're going to go to your friend's house. They're going to have something else. I'm not expecting you can say no, and I will pack you something to bring. But
you want her to have that choice.
I want her to have that choice.
Yeah.
It's her choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering what you think about this conversation so far.
You know, I've had a lot of thoughts, and
Yeah. Let us know what they are.
well, again, animals are delicious. I'll be frank about it. We don't choose to go vegan. We support their vegan lifestyle.
I will say,
my wife is a baker and a cook, and can make vegan food taste just like regular food.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. But as far as oppression, that was the source of the topic of conversation. Yeah. I don't see it as oppression against animals. I'll get back to your base. No, I don't see it as oppression to animals.
How did you arrive at that conclusion?
Yeah, it's just my gut. When I think of oppression, I think we have a broader, maybe a more narrow sense of the oppression we need to work on, and that perhaps the animals are a little bit outside that realm. We still treat human beings horribly. We're not eating them, but we're really treating human beings horribly. I think that's where my focus would prefer to be.
Do you think that, considering that veganism is basically a non-action, that you're basically ceasing your participation in one type of oppression, that you could still do everything that you do?
I have a lot of oppression I need to work on. Okay. That one's down the line. To be honest, I'm not perfect. I got a lot of things I need to work on, and I think the animals are a little bit lower than the human beings. I need to be better too.
I appreciate your candor. Would you say that you would at least resolve at some point to make a change where you are considering the lives and the experiences of other animals?
I'm open to that.
That's beautiful. Okay, great. Well, let me. I've already kept you guys for several minutes, so
We're headed to the American Girl store, so
Yeah.
it's somebody's birthday.
That's great. So let me just give you guys some information, if I may, and you can continue to learn about it. I'll give it to you. And
my granddaughter just asked me to actually make a change.
oh, that's beautiful. That's great. Maybe we got
really sweet.
we've got a really maybe future compassionate leader here. So.
She is.
Oh,
Yeah. She's my little vegan princess is what she is. I love her.
Come on, Duncan.
and we love the doggies and the kitties and the chicks. So
Just beware, there is some disturbing imagery in there, just so you know.
Yeah,
Not
we'll-
for her.
we'll keep
Not for
that.
you.
No, come on, let's go.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you guys for stopping.
Good luck
very much.
today.
All right.
Great day.
Yep, thank
That
you guys.
was
And if you
fun.
guys want to look at this on YouTube, my channel is called Haz. That's my name, H-A-Z, and then
Okay.
vegan, Haz Vegan.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye
Have a
now.
good-
Okay, so what's your name?
Caitlin.
Hi, Caitlin. I'm Haz. My YouTube channel is called Haz Vegan. It's just H-A-Z Vegan in case you want to check it out later. But basically today I'm just asking people, I'm not asking for any money. I'm not going to ask you for anything other than just your honest opinions. And basically the central point of my topic is about oppression. So my question is regarding oppression, would you say that it's a bad thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And would you say that with oppression, it's always coming from an outside source to the one being oppressed?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree as well. With the oppressed individual and looking at their traits, would you say that if the oppressor determined that the oppressed victim is so inferior to them in terms of their intellectual caliber that they're not aware of the oppression, would that still make it wrong if the victim is not aware of the oppression?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Make it more wrong.
They make it more wrong. Yeah. I could see a case for that. What do you think if the oppressor said that they get a lot of pleasure from the oppression? So they just really, really like to do it, and they just derive so much value from it that any kind of enjoyment. Would that make it justified in that case?
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, I agree as well. What if they said that the victim just belongs to a different group, like they look different, they're a different size, shape, color, something like that, and therefore those individuals are deserving, or at least that it's permissible to subject them to that?
No, I don't think it is okay to subject anyone to oppression.
That's great. That's beautiful. I completely agree. Lastly, what do you think if the oppressed victim is in kind of a situation where they maybe just can't free themselves, or they don't have the power to free themselves, and the oppressor says that they're never going to be able to get out of this situation, so it doesn't matter that they're not going to really accomplish much if they get out of the situation anyway?
No, I would say do it anyway.
It's still wrong.
Yeah, it's still wrong. Oh, yeah, it's still wrong.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's nothing that's going to make me say it's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Can you think of any examples of a scenario that would involve oppression where people have used kind of similar justifications? It doesn't have to be a current one, but just maybe throughout the historical timeline of humankind.
Yes.
Would you care to share one?
Slavery.
Yeah, human slavery, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. So I'm wondering, based on, let me, I guess, summarize first. So it sounds like you have a pretty consistent view against oppression, whether the victim is less intellectually capable, whether they're less physically capable, whether they look different, like different size, shape, color, whether they're unable to recognize that they're being oppressed. In other words, if they don't have the intellectual caliber to recognize that, or if the oppressor gets a lot of pleasure or joy from enacting that oppression. Sounds like you're against it in all instances where you have a pretty consistent view.
I think if somebody gets joy out of it, then they have something wrong with them, in that they should seek help.
Yeah, I mean, there's instances where you can think that somebody could do something where they would get joy out of it, and they'd be able to find substitutes maybe for creating a victim. Like they'd be able to, if they really enjoy, for example, like punching people or kicking people, for example, instead of kicking actual living beings, they can plaster something on a punching bag or something.
Take it out at the gym, yeah. Or join a boxing club, or anything like that.
Yeah, there's always alternatives.
Yes.
Great.
Exactly.
So given
Put your
these
energy somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. You can divert that energy. So given these things I've asked you, I'm going to tie it back around now. So I'm wondering how you feel about farmed animals. Do you consider them victims of a type of oppression at the hands of humans?
Yes. I agree.
And is that something that you've looked into in the past? Is that a topic that you've allowed yourself to be exposed to in terms of the plight of those animals?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty aware of it. I don't eat a lot of meat. It's always, I haven't since I was a kid. I always just thought it was weird to eat animals. But, I mean, I do eat meat sometimes. I wouldn't call myself a vegetarian or vegan. But yeah, I agree with that.
What do you think is weird about it? How did you arrive at the conclusion that it's a weird practice? Let's explore that a little bit if you're willing to.
Okay. I just remember thinking it's weird that it was alive. I don't know. And it's like meat. It just was the same kind of thing as eating dish. I don't know.
Yeah, like they were once living.
Yeah. It wasn't even like I wasn't exposed to many farm animals, but I just thought, about, cows and they're farm animals, and I don't know. I guess I'm thinking more about it now, but I've just never really liked the thought of eating meat.
You never liked the thought of it?
Yeah, and it never made me feel, I don't think it's healthy either, for my body anyway.
Yeah, and when I ask these questions, I'm always trying to maintain a perspective of the victim. When people bring up the fact that it's not healthy to eat animals, for example, I do agree for the most part, but I think that someone can be healthy in spite of eating other animals. If they just eat small amounts, or if they eat the kinds that aren't maybe loaded with as many toxins or things like that. But in the case of the oppressor, for example, who's getting pleasure from what they're doing, we wouldn't really care, you know what I mean, if they when I say we wouldn't care, I mean we wouldn't let them off the hook, so to speak, even if they were able to instantiate that oppression in a way that was less harmful to them. You know what I mean? If they wore boxing gloves before punching people instead of doing it barefisted and hurting their fist, for example.
Right.
Have you ever seen any footage of what happens in slaughterhouses?
Yes. I've seen.
How do you feel when you see it?
It's disgusting. Ugh. I don't even like to think about it. I was at a museum yesterday, and I saw a painting of raw meat, and I didn't even want to look at it. It's just, it's really sad. They're not treating them as a living things. It's super sad.
Yeah, I would say it's even an inconvenience to the industry that they're alive, because they have to kill them. They can't just...
Yeah. Anyway, I gotta go.
Okay, can I give you some information?
Sure.
Just a little leaflet? Just a little brochure, just with more information. Sure. Great. I appreciate your being open-minded toward it. A lot of people don't want to think about it, and a lot of people know that if they thought about it, that they might have to change. So
I know.
But it can't ever be a bad change, because if it's more in line with your values, if your actions are put more into lockstep with the person that you believe you are, then you'll have less cognitive dissonance. It's where you either have to modify your behavior to change your or to match your morals, or you have to change your morals to match your actions.
So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you think that if the animals were treated better and bred better, but still had to feed the human race, do you ever think it's okay? Is it?
Well, I think that it's still an exploitative practice.
Yeah.
My issue is with viewing other animals as resources. So another way to say that is that my issue is with seeing them as a means to an end instead of as ends in and of themselves. I believe that other animals are here with us, on this earth, and it's a beautiful celebration of life if we let it be, rather than being here for us. So I would encourage you to think about that perspective, just here with us, not for us.
Yeah.
See where that takes you.
Good one. Okay.
Thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate
All
it.
right,
And if you want to check out my channel again, I think I let you know earlier, but it's Haz, H-A-Z, and then vegan, Haz Vegan.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for stopping. You guys have a great rest of your day.